Good evening, everyone. Hello. Welcome to the Spiritist Society of Baltimore's virtual meeting. Yay! Happy Saturday. So before we introduce our speaker for this evening, as usual, we always open up our meetings with a prayer and a short reading from Happy Life. So I will be doing so. So those of you who would like to follow along on this beautiful little book, this is the second edition of Happy Life, if I can put it in the screen there. And if you would like to follow along, I'm reading on page 123. Read something comforting and inspiring every day, however brief. Make it a habit. It will enrich you with joy, dispersing the dark clouds that may envelop you afterwards, and providing you with well-being should something unpleasant come up. Everyone needs a good counselor, and in the pages of the gospel, you will find sure guidelines and words of wisdom for every occasion. If people would only think before acting, they would avert countless evils. Be one who does, even if others do not. Truly inspiring words and a great reminder, especially for this book series or this study of this book that Leonardo has been doing for us on this book, Planetary Transition. So before we officially begin our meeting, join me in a brief prayer to tune our minds to the higher vibrations, to God, to our Creator, to our spirit mentors. First, in gratitude, with our hearts open, we turn our minds to our divine Creator, our Father, Mother God, our spirit guides, and all those loving spirits and good vibrations that are existing now as we are creating them in this field, this net of love, kindness, and a desire to comfort those who are suffering. We ask our noble Creator and our spirit guides to inspire our speaker, Leo, this evening to be the vessel for this divine information, to enlighten the masses, to comfort those who are in need, and for those who are ready to listen and to hear, to absorb the words and the information into the depths of their soul. We pray especially for what's going on our planet currently and for all those affected. We pray that we may find solace and strength, courage, but also purpose. Remembering Jesus in our hearts, we open this meeting this evening, and so be it. So, dear friends, without further ado and not wanting to take up too much of Leo's time, today he'll be going over chapters 13 and 14 of the book, Planetary Transition. So if you have the book nearby, I'm sure you could grab it and follow some of the concepts and some of the ideas. And don't forget, if you're watching either via Facebook or YouTube, drop a comment, drop a question, even if it's early on, and we will do our best to try to address it towards the end when the Q&A portion comes up. So, Leo, please bless us with your presentation this evening.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this amazing continuation of this amazing book entitled Planetary Transition. I keep with me, and I love the message that Joanna De Angelis brought to us to read a passage of a book, something enlightening, and keep our lives going in that positive way. What I would like to offer, not only tonight, but we have what we've been trying to do and what we'd like to offer tonight and in the future as well, is that take certain parts of the book, even though we read a lot of the texts, that it's from each chapter, the explanation from the Dr. Philomena, Mr. Miranda, and the other doctors, and the beautiful explanation is to take excerpts and apply into our lives, right? So that we can make better decisions, as Joanna De Angelis says. So it's an amazing start for us to remind ourselves, how important it is to read, to study, to question, right? Whenever the author mentions something, we try to rescue and go after the information so we can better equip ourselves in our daily lives. So, planetary transition, chapter 13 and 14, and as Kirsten mentioned here earlier, and we would like to cover with you what we have seen so far, right? This is actually the session number 7. And we have covered in the last session chapters 11 and 12, continued learning, life responds as planned. These 2 chapters were very enlightening because they brought to us several examples of what happened to individuals who were involved with the tsunami in the Indian Ocean, and how they encountered themselves on the other side, right? Individuals who were actually hurt and they continue to stay in the body. The help from the family members who were attending to those individuals as well, who were connected with the wreckage and the challenge that they faced. Tonight, or this afternoon and into this evening, we will be covering chapter 14, entitled Making Up for Lost Time, and chapter 13, Making Up for Lost Time, and chapter 14, Guidelines for the Future. We're going to focus more on chapter 13. Obviously, we will discuss quite a bit as well on chapter 14, but chapter 13 is actually, if we can say, a transition and the end of the let's call the first assignment that Manuel Filomena Miranda and the helpers had, as far as helping those individuals who were involved with the tsunami in the Indian Ocean. And then he moves on into a new task that he was going to attend, that was also, if you remember, on chapter 1 and 2, mentioned by the mentor who came from the Pleiades, the constellation that would be helping us, right, here on planet Earth. So before we get into the actual transition into the new task, let us talk about some of the highlights that we brought on this amazing chapter. So, chapter 13, Making Up for Lost Time. As usual, Mr. Miranda actually brings us the what was happening, right? He starts the chapter illuminating us with the condition, the environment, what was happening. And he said, we return to the community periodically for the needed rest before continuing our relief efforts for our disconnected brothers and sisters, spiritually bereft of illuminative resources. And then he said, the number of corpses exposed on beaches and in cities victimized by the collective tragedy was slowly decreasing while the wreckage was being removed and buildings were being reconstructed. And he gives this depiction again of, things are getting better, but it's still pretty hard to deal with it. And he interestingly says also, it talks about the survivors. The suffering of the survivors was appalling. Nevertheless, the sublime impulse of life to overcome misfortune kept them going and helped them rebuild their lives. This is the point that I would like to bring here, that even though the situation was very hard, it was very difficult for any one of us to grasp or even to understand, and if we were exposed to such a situation, we would be distraught. We would be, pretty much lost, right? Just by seeing it. And we can, right now, when we go back and we take, we have actually brought some pictures of the aftermath, of the tsunami. And the amount of destruction, it's just unbearable, right? And imagine living through it. Imagine there, or imagine if we were to discarnate and be in that situation. But one of the points I would like to bring is that Mr. Miranda actually he's able to bring the positive side of this whole thing, right? And he tells us a little bit of what happens on the other side as he goes back to his colony where he used to he would reside, right? Again, this is the point where we that the mark in the book where Yvonne Costa, as we mentioned, I believe him in chapter 2, and Mr. Miranda goes back to their colony. Dr. White, in this case, invites two other spirits to replace their work in the Indian Sea. So it's a replacement so that they can continue their efforts of helping in another area that we're going to see later on tonight. But here's what Manuel Filomeno de Miranda mentions to the people, his friends, his acquaintances at his colony when he goes back. Look at this. He says, I was impressed by the miracle of life, which breathes vitality back into the drought of summer, causes the dry branches to bud and the tender shoots to appear when spring arrives, and revives faint hearts and the uneven struggle, providing inner spiritual growth. It triumphs in all seemingly destructive situations and points towards immortality as a supreme victory of human existence. And he continues giving this beautiful explanation of although there is suffering, we have to open our eyes. We have to open ourselves to the work, to the help that is being provided, right? To the aid that is being provided to one another, and just the joy of being there by providing something, by extending a hand, is just by far it speaks louder than the suffering that they were seeing. And he continued by saying, as far as possible, we describe the uplifting experiences and the lessons we had observed, especially the fellowship among spirits acclimated to different faiths, but united by the same sentiments of love, compassion, and charity. Indeed, we discovered the solidarity that should exist between Muslim and Jews, Catholics, and Protestants, Spiritists and other believers, or even non-believers, which filled us with ineffable inner joy as we rediscovered divine wisdom pulsing in everything, as well as the power of fraternal solidarity, which does not submit to the unbending wisdom of the passionate ego. So here we have this amazing explanation. As you remember, watching the other presentations that we had, that he always started in a way describing what was happening, which is no lie to us for us to really understand, the scenario, right? But he brought the help, he brought the aid as well. And here in this chapter, he's emphasizing this. He emphasizes that there's love. After all, God is always there. God is always helping. Because we're going through this transition, that doesn't mean we're just going to be left alone. We were never left alone, and we're always going to have the aid that we need. So it's interesting for us to bring this so that we can apply this in our lives. Whether we're connected with something that is not perhaps the best way that we would like to see it, let us see the best on the situation. Let us see the best on the people, right? Even if they act in a way that is not very inviting, we look for the best of it. And we have to remember as well that there are spirits working to change the situation, especially when we connect with these individuals, so with these spirits as well. So it's important for us to highlight this positiveness that he brings in the air as well, because it's exactly this that is going to prepare them to the next work that they will do. And he mentioned this, how happy they were to be able to assist, to be able to help, and that joy actually brings them the excitement of, okay, there's a new task now. What is about to happen? How can we help? How can we be of help, right? So he continues on by explaining what was happening between him and Yvonne Costa as well when they go back to their colony. right? And here's a picture of obviously Monofilament and Miranda and Yvonne Costa that we actually had mentioned in, I believe, chapter 2 or 3. Although Yvonne Costa resided in another colony situation over central Brazil based on the beautiful mountains of Minas Gerais, which is a state in Brazil, I invited him to stay with us for the next few days before returning to the earth to pursue other commitments. So what was happening is they had a time about 2 days before they would get the instruction, as we will see, of the next assignment that they would go for, the next help that they would partake on. And he asked Ivan Costa to stay, and he explains how the exchange between colonies, the exchange between work that is done between these colonies. And we're going to also talk a little bit of something that Kirsten had presented to us last week, which is actually our rest, how we rest, right? And how we're going to make a comparison here on how they rest. We, when I say they, it's pretty much we, when we lose our physical body and we get to a certain level of our spirituality that we don't need anymore the number of hours of sleep, the number of hours of entertainment that we utilize here on Earth. We're not judging, and this is one of the highlights that I want to bring as well. That Monofilament and Miranda never really judged or bring in any situation that we should stop doing this or that. He just makes a parallel, saying that life pulsates, work is always ongoing on the spiritual realm, and that we need to ascend to this idea of working even harder in our lives and always serve, right? And he says the following: understandably, the exchange between spirit colonies is constant and natural, as it happens on the earth, between different communities that sustain and interact with one another. It's interesting here because we have this exchange between countries, right? Between cities, right? We have this exchange perhaps in business, for all that matters. One state is able to produce this type of product, and the other state is able to produce this type of goods, and we need to get together and see how we can exchange this, sell and buy. The same thing is the exchange of values that we have. Let's learn from the West. Let's learn from the East. What happens in states where the harsh winter, they have to deal with that. How can we learn from them? And there is always this exchange. And I would like to go even further, breaking down this to ourselves. Have we ever thought about, well, at least I will start thinking about, what am I doing in my home? What can I offer in my home when people come to stay with us? When we have visitors. Since we're talking about the exchange between spirited colonies, why can we think of exchange between our homes? If there is something in my home that I do well, why not present that to other people when they come and visit us, right? As well as when we go to visit someone, we try to extract as well from that home, from that visit that we pay someone, the best of their home, right? The excitement, the way they host us, right? The different things that we can do, that we can learn with one another. My point is that, bottom line, we're always experiencing something. We're always learning something. And if there is nothing that we can take that is positive, let us bring the positive. Let us pray. Let us offer something that we can perhaps change the environment, that at least people can say, okay, I can do this. I can change this a little bit when there is the opportunity, of course. But I am a firm believer that everyone has something to offer. Everyone can offer something. And I was thinking about this, since the family is the cell of a society, why not think this way, right? We have in books of André Luiz, notice the homes that are well prepared with the God at home, right? They become outposts for higher spirituality to come and rest. So here we go. We can always utilize that idea to change our environment and become this point of light to offer others a better way of living. Although each has its own specific characteristics, they all operate for the moral development of their discarnate inhabitants. preparing them for future commitments in blessed reincarnation. We think that, a little, lesson that we have that is not going to resonate in our lives, well enough, or it's going to be forgotten. We need to rethink that, because it imprints something good, something bad, obviously, imprints in our perispirit very well, and it will obviously resonate later on. The same thing we need to apply to the good things that we can offer and the good things that we can receive. It will stay with us. We will carry on with us. So again, if there's anything that we can offer, let us offer. Let us make our homes these outposts and offer something more enlightened to others. For us, and then he goes into rest. Resting tells the renewal of energy for spirituality, uplifting endeavors, revitalizing and helping us to better understand the lessons of life, expanding our horizons of service to others, which ultimately results in service to ourselves. Service others to service ourselves, right? And again, it's just a way that he's explaining to us, and how important it is for us to um, um, take rest in a more enlightened way, right? Let us utilize the time to learn something, to offer something. And as we're doing so, let us try to help one another. And he continues by saying, thus, it is a bit different than the kind of rest needed by incarnates, whose strength and balance are renewed according to the individual organic parameters for the commitments of evolution. Here again, as we said earlier, he's not saying, oh, it's wrong for you to sleep 8 hours. It's wrong for you to sleep 10 hours if all that matters. No, it's just a different way that once more, later on, as we grow, spiritually speaking, and we have different priorities in our lives, we will see rest as a different thing. And here in this situation, he told Yvonne, why don't you stay? Let us go ahead and partake in some of the teachings that we have here in this colony. And one day, perhaps, hopefully, we don't have that yet in this book. Mr. Miranda will go and visit Yvonne Costa's colony, where he stays as well. To finalize this quick part here, he says, life does not ever cease to vibrate. If it did, it would reduce everything to the chaos of the beginning. So it continues. And we'll see this later on with an amazing case that we're going to bring over here of the individual who's going to be leading the work with Mr. Miranda. Therefore, it is necessary to act to make up for time previously squandered on wrongful behaviors, selfishness, and the constant pursuit of pleasure. Once more, therefore, it's necessary to act to make up for previous lost time, right? On the wrongful behavior, selfishness, and the constant pursuit of pleasure. This is the first time that that it's mentioned in this chapter, this idea of previously lost time, right? And we'll see it later on. It's mentioned twice by Mr. Miranda and by the guiding spirit who is going to lead the next work that Mr. Miranda will work on. So here we have two teachings in this amazing chapter. Well, thus far, really three. The first one was the positiveness that he brings about the work, even though there was a lot of difficulties going on. The first one was talking about the interchange, right? The exchange the exchange of information, of ideals presented by these different communities that we see in the spirit realm, and obviously the idea about rest. That again, I would urge you to watch the talk that Kirsten gave last week. It's already available on our website. That she discusses a chapter from the book Jesus in Our Lives, talking about Jesus and rest. So please check into it. It's definitely worth for us to watch it and kind of change a little bit the way we see rest in our lives. Moving on. The new instructor and the new task. I should have put this in pieces here, but forgive me, it's just a one huge thing. Here is, we're going to move on to the new task that Monofilament and Miranda and some other helpers will actually work on. Okay, it's a little bit long, so bear with me. I will try to break down into parts. There is a presentation of the instructor and who he is, and the new task as well. And later on, we'll see a speech that he gives to those individuals who are meeting to start the work. And there's a little bit more, but for right now, let's stop right there. So Dr. Artemio Guimarans is the new doctor, is the head of the Reincarnation department of Dr. Miranda's, where Manuel Miranda lives, who was going to lead 500 workers divided into small groups. So who is this guy? Who is this spirit? Dr. Guimarans, during his last reincarnation in Brazil, was born in a very humble family and became a renowned doctor, devoting his life to biology and embryology. He dedicated his life to the reduction of abortion, contraceptive uses, and all those things. He was born again in a very humble family in the state of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. We don't want to go in too much into the details that Manuel Miranda gives about him, which is important that you pick up and read, because there are information there that it really makes you wonder sometimes on the hard work of doctors, of people who really educate themselves to make a difference in their lives, right? With the advancement of optics and technology around the manufacture of microscopes, especially electron microscopes, he was able to understand the miracle of human fertilization, selecting ova and sperm in experiments that would eventually lead to the grand achievement of in vitro fertilization, artificial insemination, enabling thousands of people to procreate. Dr. Guimarans would be in charge, and then again, I want to take a step back here because I thought that this was the continuation. Unfortunately, before he give, obviously, like it happens with many of these great minds, he passed, right? He discarnate. He left a wife. He left 2 kids, still reincarnated on Earth. Not now. We don't know their situation now, but when he discarnated. And she was also a doctor, the wife. So the family was really, we can see that is a reincarnation that really the spirit took as a mission to accomplish something. He didn't see the work, he couldn't finish the work that he was doing. But here's what happened. When he went back to the spirit realm, he kept working. He kept doing what he was doing before from the colony, at the colony that he was now serving. Right now, again, as the head of the reincarnation department, where Mr. Miranda was actually staying. So sorry about the Dr. Miranda there, because we don't refer him as Dr. Miranda, Mr. Miranda. But that's basically, again, an example of how when we start something, when we allow ourselves to embark in a great mission like this, the body won't stop it. The physical impediment, as far as losing the physical body and going back to the spirit realm, it's not going to stop anything. And as we saw on the explanation by Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, we can see that we don't start everything at zero. We just keep take on from wherever we stopped. So whether in the spirit realm, whether back on the physical body, we give a continuation to what we started. And then to finalize this explanation, Dr. Guimarans would be in charge of the return of 500 workers to the beloved planet for the preparation of the new era, making a way for mass reincarnation of migrants from one of the stars in the constellations of the Pleiades, in this sublime endeavor of helping the Earth reach the level of world of regeneration. You may ask, Leo, are you out of your mind? No, this is actually Manuel Filomeno de Miranda telling us, giving us this explanation that several spirits who has no connection whatsoever with planet Earth, and I'll explain the reason why we say this, has no connection whatsoever with people, nothing. Their ideals are way more advanced than ours. these individuals, these spirits, when I say individual, these spirits, their physiology, their physical bodies, where they came from, is way more advanced than ours, right? And they're allowing themselves, they're embarking this mission to help us, the human society, to advance physically and most importantly is spiritually as well. And we'll see on how Dr. Guimarans addressed these individuals when he's talking to them later on. But it's important that highlight again that they have no connection. And we have seen this in previous chapter, and forgive me, I don't remember what chapter, but we have seen that these spirits, they advance because they have no connection. So for example, let's say if somebody, a long friend or family member rather, does something wrong to you, and it does repetitively even, right? It's easy for us to get very upset with that individual because we have that connection. Now, if somebody on the street does something a little bit absurd, we can say, you look at it and say, okay, it's easier to forgive. Well, sometimes we may even think that, okay, I'm not going to see that individual anymore. I don't have the connection day to day with that individual. But because we don't have that previous reoccurring situation, we look at it and say, you know what? It's an unfortunate brother or sister who erred, and it's okay. Go on your way, and I'll go on with mine, right? This is a very lame explanation, but this is a huge start, or let's say restart, for these minds that are coming to Earth with a new moral development to our society. When they look at our shortcomings, they're going to look at it and say, let's forgive. Let's just go ahead and continue to work, right? So Dr. Guimarans, then they are called into this let's say amazing location that really comes up as an atrium or a location that many spirits were gathered together to receive these teachings from Dr. Guimarães to what was about to happen. But he gives an explanation on how much we have received these enlightening ideas way back when, and we still ignore them. Let us read this, and I will try to give some ideas of what had happened of the text, obviously, that we're not going to bring in everything, and we can understand. Dr. Guimarães actually comes to the podium after he's called by a spirit called José Lopes Neto, who is actually a very renowned spiritist, that in the last reincarnation, he was one of the main workers of a spiritist group in the south of Brazil. He actually prays, and he brings the crowd to understand what was about to happen. And in this meeting as well, we have no other than Saint Francis of Assisi and Saint Clare of Assisi participating in this meeting. It took the level of spirituality from here to all the way up here. It's amazing because when I start reading, I'm like, oh my God, it's not by chance, because the colony where Mr. Miranda participates or is part of was founded by individuals who used to follow, or still follows, I should say, Saint Francis of Assisi. So again, everyone met at a specific time to receive the directives by Dr. Guimarães. The spirit José Lopes Neto was the master of ceremonies, and everyone was blessed with the presence of Saint Francis of Assisi and Saint Clare of Assisi. I would like to say that after this speech right here that Dr. Guimarães gives, no one other than Saint Francis of Assisi comes to the podium and says the final prayer. But we're not going to discuss the final prayer yet. We're going to leave the final prayer to the end of this meeting tonight. Because for those of you who is listening to it right now, or is following me, you're going to be asking, okay, Leo, what happened to the prayer of Saint Francis of Assisi? So what I will do before I go into this is that when we finish tonight, after we go over and we say the final prayer, maybe I'll change my mind. I'll do it before. We'll see how it goes. And I would like to bring this to you We're going to read. Yes, we will read because it's so enlightening, and it's so full of joy that I definitely would like to make that a huge highlight for us too. So Dr. Guimaras goes to the podium and then he explains that the law of progress, it is incontestable, and the love of our Father is immeasurable, giving everything and everyone continuous spiritual growth, which will take them to the highest of fullness. The alerts of different times. He goes over by saying, look, Jesus in the prophetic sermon that we find in Mark 13 is right there, telling us that we are going through changes. We're going to go through changes, that we need to change ourselves. John the evangelist in the book of Revelations as well. He goes over and explains to us that we're going to see suffering. We're going to see change, times of changes. The prophets, Isaiah, Enoch, and others pointed out the inevitable changes. The Mayan calendar, look at this, the Mayan calendar, sometimes we take for granted, point out the suffering of Earth's inhabitants. Nostradamus, and this is again, Dr. Guimarans actually mentioning this, mentioned that the Earth would go through changes. Edgar Cayce predicted geographical changes in his countries, as he said, right? So we have all these different examples that he's bringing it to us. That is, some of them are very, it's not new to us. It's very vivid in our hearts right now. And, sometimes we just take for granted. And there's a lot that we need to learn from these revelations and how we need to change. It's not that we're going to go ahead and change the geographical or geological changes that the Earth will go through. I'll take a step back and say, though, that with technology, if we put our minds to work and our hearts to work together, we will be able to evaluate or diminish a lot of the suffering. For example, now we can predict a storm within every 3 minutes. We see the changes that is going on in storms on planet Earth on every 3 minutes. In the past, it used to be, and this is about 2 years ago, the ability that we had is that we had the changes was, I believe, 27 or 28 minutes. And the reason I know this because I have been blessed of having a customer who works for NASA, and she actually gave me a full rundown of this whole thing. But unfortunately, I never really got into it. But now we can predict the storm within and actually keep updating it within 3 minutes. So when we think of our intelligence right now, how can we change this? Yes, well, we can change. We can prevent a lot of destruction if we're able to predict a storm, how fast the wind will be, and all the things. Since we're talking about we're experiencing a lot with the geological changes that went on Earth with the Indian Ocean. He continues and says, and throughout history, revelations concerning the dire events that have been taking place everywhere have increased, grabbing the attention of human beings who nonetheless remain careless, absorbed by the fumes of pleasure and exhausting gratifications. Periodically, worthy prophets and sensitives have expressed their sentiments and concerns about the major changes already taking place, but which will become even more significant should society continue in its unbridled rush into moral disasters caused by their unwielding self-centeredness. Such fatalism is expressed as the effect of our continued primitive behavior, far from the liberating teachings presented by Jesus, easily applicable to the moral and spiritual concepts prevailing in a society gripped by ignorance and materialism, even that which is theoretically linked to certain religious beliefs. But all revelations state that better days will come. So here we have an explanation that we have all this information. We have all this stuff going on right now. We're going through one right now. We were discussing earlier how hard it is, has been for people to acclimate to what's going on, and we still not really making much of advancement. I like to say some, but if you were to ask me February or March, on when this whole thing started, I was very positive about the whole thing. Well, hopefully now we're going to learn something, but Unfortunately, that is not a reality. Things don't change overnight, and we have to take baby steps, unfortunately, to see the great change. And here it is again, us discussing a book that has been psychographed for several years now, and when a spirit is telling us that we're still self-centered, right? We're still going our own ways to live our lives. And that he said, and then he continues, and this is something that we can rescue on in right at the Bible. It's not something that he's creating right here. Look what happened. Look what he said. And that revelation has been forgotten because the human spirit is still purposefully or not dominated by what is terrifying and threatening, oblivious to the larkies of love and mercy of God towards his creatures. When John the Evangelist heard the serious revelation, his heart was heavy and he asked, "Is there no hope?" And then he continued, obviously saying, "The beloved disciple was greatly distressed, but he soon heard the beautiful answer, 'There is always hope, O thou, for whom heaven and earth were created.'" A second possibility is part of the divine plan as long as humans meet the expectations of love, generating new resources regarding the good, which will produce uplifting effects. So we have a choice. We have a choice. We have a choice to, when we are making a decision. And yes, I mean, it's easy for us to go ahead and take this information right now and apply to politics, the decisions that are made by big leaders. Let's bring this to ourselves. If anything that I can ask is for you to apply this to yourself. How? When something comes against you and you have to forgive. It's going to be hard. Yes, it's going to be very hard. I'm telling this to myself. Forgive. When we have to make a decision that will impact other lives, think twice. What's the good that's going to come out of this, right? Diminish ourselves. Do not make ourselves any bigger than we are not. And this is something that we have to evaluate in our lives every single day. These are the decisions that we can make, and many others. You would, if we had an open microphone, I'm quite sure that you guys would have better examples than I do. But these are the things that we can do. This is the second possibility that we can provide to one another as we are in this inspirational moment of growth. Spiritists to getting to a new era, right? Or regenerative area, which, by the way, is not perfect. It's not going to be perfect. It doesn't mean that we're going to have really great days without worries, or no. It's as if we are coming out of the hospital after a sick day that we took to reestablish ourselves, and now we have to think that if I eat too much, my sickness is going to come back. If I explore certain things in my life too much, my sickness will come back. So remember this and make better decisions. Thus continues the great seer of Revelation. But I did not see what happened to them. This is again John the Evangelist, because he was able to see the positive when he was being presented by heaven, right? But I did not see what happened to them because my vision changed. I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. Emotion took the apostle, who rejoiced when he heard a great voice of angelic beings saying, "There will be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, and neither shall there be any more pain." This is again, folks, the explanation of what's going to happen with us. To finalize, these blessings will occur because spirits uncompromised by evil will be on the planet building the kingdom of heaven in hearts and working effectively for solidarity based on love. Now he's referring to the several spirits who is about to reincarnate, and they mention migrant spirits, right? And he says they will speed up moral progress using intellectual and technological means to promote fraternity among people, so that the more powerful will help develop the less endowed, replacing war with solidarity, and the perverse, clandestine slave trade with freedom of choice and exchange, and fighting endemic, and degenerative diseases, which will have no place because members of the noble family will not be marked by large debts. Once the planet's constitution is renewed, its tectonic plates harmonized, the high temperature of its volcanic magma decreased, the many cataclysms that have assailed and destroyed it will gradually disappear. The temperature will become stable without searing heat or freezing cold, and its landscapes will be endemic. Once the physical body adapts to the new climate conditions, it will undergo special changes also due to the beings that will inhabit it, imprinting other physio-psychological values that will contribute to its spiritual evolution. So there are a lot of here in this text that we can stop and just spend hours in these 4 paragraphs right here. We're looking the idea of the change of planets' constitution. So it's not going to be one area. Obviously, in these reincarnations that they explain, I'll take a step back. These reincarnations not only it has been happening since the explanation that we're giving here, the time when this book actually was being psychographed, or let's say years before. But it has happened in different decades back in the 70s, 80s, and the 90s as well. And this is something that actually Manuel de Miranda mentions to us, that it has happened before. So it has been happening. And we see these great minds around the world helping. And most of the time, they're not speaking. They're not in the political arena. They're working very tirelessly in ways that we don't even see it. Well, you have to have the eyes to see it. But they don't show off saying, "Oh, I'm doing this or that," right? And we will see the same thing happening as the planet's constitution changes. We'll see the harmonization of the geographical and geological changes that we're not going to have to go through. And if we have to go through, technology, as they're saying here, will be used to minimize the effects of it. So it's important for us to look at and connect all of these things, because sometimes we think, oh my gosh, technology is taking over the world. We see, all the people worry about too much technology, science. We need science. These are the discovery that we're making, the breakthrough that we're making, is that if we put our minds into it, we will actually utilize for the good things. Now, one may ask, what will happen to those who maintain themselves, whether reincarnated, and those who are reincarnated around the earth, that are still partaking in the negative things of life? They will be excluded to another planet where they will be utilized to bring advancement to the planet where they're going to be going to. Planet Earth has actually gone through this, where those individuals who are here, and they could be here no more, barbaric individuals, they were taken to other locations because our society was not able to hold them here anymore. It's a different state of mind, it's a different state of heart, and the same thing is going to happen to those who does not want to jump on the wagon and do the right things for one another. So it's a beautiful chapter that we can and certainly enlighten us by picking up the book, read it. Question, right? But it's really beautiful that now we have a doctor who dedicated his life on Earth to continue his work on the other side and lead these number of minds that are coming from another constellation to help us and to guide us, morally speaking, as well as to be the individuals who it's going to kickstart, if we can say this way, the new physiological changes that we will have here on Earth. As we give continuation, chapter 14, guidelines for the future. Now it's a breakdown of how Dr. Guimarans will actually apply the the work, how things will be divided, what is the actual task, and we're going to go over this because it's very beautiful, it's very important. After the amazing meeting, Dr. Guimarães Lopes Neto, San Fran of Assisi, and St. Clair, they were all together. Everyone was guided to meet at a specific location to receive further instruction on the new tasks. It's interesting how Manuel Filomeno de Miranda really emphasizes on time, organization, the beauty of the environment, and the preparation that of the work that you're about to start, the prayers and all the things that we see, and this gives us an insight on how we should conduct our lives as well. Prepare, right? Really, if it is a small task that you have to do, and sometimes can be that very difficult task or not, but prepare yourself for it. Talk to yourself and say, let me pray because now I have to do this, and make it big in terms of it's going to be an accomplishment in your life. And I think this is one of the things that I have been learning, that before I start anything, I kind of sit down, I kind of mentalize what I'm going to do. More than ever, I've been thinking about work in terms of the preparation before I get to work. What am I going to be doing today? What are the things that I need to help on today? What are the individuals who are working with me today, right? How can I be of help? It's interesting because my title at work is assistant, and we don't have to go through the rest, but I have an assistant in my title. So always this comes to mind because it really puts me in a position that, look, I'm there to assist. I'm there to help my customers, to help those individuals who are with me, because we also value the internal customers that we have. And our brothers and sisters at home, they're also our customers, our people that we're dealing with, and they're helping us grow too. So it's beautiful how Manuel Filomeno de Miranda reminds us that there is the preparation for any work that we do. So the new group, ours was, and this is him saying, ours was composed of 20 spirits dedicated to the work of obsession and spiritual instruction, some of whom were also from the Department of Reincarnation, as Dr. Guimarans was. They had participated in making preparations for the undertaking, having been trained in the mechanism of fertilization and conception. But here's the trigger. Work of disobsession and spiritual instruction, and we'll see why. The instructor. Thus, Dr. Silvio Santana introduced himself to us. Dr. Santana was a devoted staff member from the Department of Reincarnation. In his last reincarnation, he had been a dedicated obstetrician and geneticist, a scholar of human reproduction. So we see again, this is if we can break down here, we have Dr. Guimarães, and we have Dr. Silvio, who will Silvio Santana, Dr. Santana, who will then guide not only Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, but another 19 individuals to do the work that they have to do. We're going to get to the task soon, but I just want you to understand what's happening. Dr. Guimarães was supposed to stay in the colony, guiding the other instructors that will be conducting the work with other spirits as well. But we're going to see Manuel Filomeno de Miranda working directly with Dr. Santana in this in the endeavor here. So here's the task. Let's take a look at the task. We would be participating in selecting couples to receive visitors from other realms as their children, so that they could achieve their superior goals, starting the cycle of rebirths on the earth until the time the beacons for the era of regeneration were established. We would be utilizing couples who longed for parenthood, but who, due to various reasons, were having difficulties conceiving, thus resorting to artificial conception with subsequent implantation of the egg, making possible the reincarnation of spirits who would work for the good on the earth undergoing renewal. Aid prospective parents to avoid negative influences from idle, vengeful, jealous, or disruptive spirits. Remember when I said a slide ago, I'll bring it back real quick here, that they were the group actually were specialized in this obsession in spiritual, if you can see right here, in spiritual instruction. There you go. This is what they're doing. They're aiding these prospective parents to make sure that they're okay. Let's think positive. Let's be, despite the difficult, because this is not easy for a couple who cannot have kids, who cannot give birth, or mothers who cannot give birth, to deal with, number one, so they don't fall into traps or ideals that are not positive for these new minds that will be reincarnating with them in the future. Our first activity was scheduled for the following evening, when more than 10,000 discarnate aliens would gather on a Brazilian beach to hear Dr. Guimarans give a speech regarding the commitments of self-enlightenment and spiritual development of the earth. So he met Dr. Santana, and then he gave then the task. The next task was to meet with, again, back with Dr. Guimarans at a beach in Brazil, where all these other spirits would have the guidance of Dr. Guimarans, receive the guidance of Dr. Guimarans on what to do. And it's important to say again that these spirits who came from the Pleiades, they were actually visiting different spiritist centers, different homes, so that they could acclimate to the planet's psychosphere and the inhabitants as well. So imagine us, if we're going to help in a different country, what would you like to know? How these people dress, what they eat, and how they think, how they operate, what kind of currency they have, what the things that they do, how they react to life, or even act, right? Because I think they were acting more than they were reacting. And they were doing the same thing. They were actually going around and trying to get to know planet Earth, so they can actually infiltrate themselves into this new realm that they were about to start helping as well. So then we move on to when Dr. Guimarans actually, I'm going to move this a little bit here, sorry. I can't move right now, sorry. I will have to go to the book and pull up this. He actually, Dr. Guimarans mentions that there will be a lot of battles, difficult battles to fight, right? And one of the things that he actually says is that you will be asked to demonstrate. I really have to take this over here, so let me just take this real quick. I do apologize, and I'll move this a little bit, and I can move back up again. You will be asked to demonstrate, and this is the Dr. Guimarans, forgive me, Dr. Guimarans explaining to the spirits at the beach what will happen. And this is a very small excerpt of what the speech that he brings to these minds. You will be asked to demonstrate fraternity when conflicts and disagreements erupt. You will face outright animosity amongst those with whom you will live. You will have to bear the painful weight of the constant dissatisfaction of those that will part of your family and activities. You will use the instruments of friendship to struggle against stubborn and fierce hatred. You will have to understand your assailants, who never seek to understand the other and who always think they are right. You will suffer slander and defamation, unhealthy competition, and the ingratitude of those in whom you deposit your trust and benevolence. They will twist your word and will threaten you in the most cowardly ways. You will experience disgrace and humiliation. Even so, Jesus will be with you at all times. You will find impediments, but remember the task to change the world to a paradise. And I'll move again up so we can go over and finalize this part. But we can see thus far that it's not going to be easy for these amazing minds, right? And he continues by saying, "You will find impediments, but remember the task to change the world to a paradise. Triumph by remaining faithful to love and fraternity, open to compassion and mercy. You will be you will be the salt of the earth, maintaining its taste in order to make the days you live in the somatic body better. Ambassadors of the good, remain in the battle for peace, always loving and never armed with any emotional weapon of belligerence or animosity. Welcome to the earth. May God bless your ministry planned by Jesus." It's very touching, at least to me, and I hope it is for you too, because in this, the first paragraph, first big paragraph there, we see the things that we are facing right now with one another. We see the difficulties that we're facing right now on planet Earth. People misunderstand us misunderstanding other individuals, question things that perhaps people are really living their lives the best way possible, and we are just throwing darts, right? And there will be no easy task for these minds who are more enlightened than us. They're spiritually more spiritually enlightened than us. Obviously, technologically speaking, they know more than we do. They understand more than we do, and here they are coming to help us. And we go back and say, these individuals have no connection whatsoever with planet Earth, and this makes it as if there is a clean sheet of paper for them to write their ideals and help us into getting to a better world more effectively and faster as well. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to be full of challenges and difficulties. And this is another reminder that things will not change overnight, right? We're still going to see these minds really battling and going through a lot of difficult moments. So this is what we would like to leave you with in terms of these new migrants that are coming to Earth, right? Nothing to be scared. They're not green people with one or big eyes. No, it's not. It's God using of our genetics right now to change, but to change ahead of us, right? To implement new ideas. As I was thinking about this, and please don't misinterpret my 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 analogy here. Imagine us when we were conquering the world, right? Despite the abuses that have happened, that I acknowledge, I understand, but imagine the Indians, right? The native people in a country that was quote unquote discovered. They they didn't know any better, and you may say, well, they didn't need to know any better. But remember, as we saw, progress comes for everybody, and inevitably, so we have to progress. Even those native minds, need to progress somehow to become better equipped for future reincarnations. And it's the same things that is happening right now with these minds coming from a different constellation to help us as well. Let us show. I'm thinking that you're coming to thinking that let us show these native earthlings, right? That they can live a better life, that they can see the joy of happiness faster, speeding up their moral progress, thus also speeding up the progress of the intellectual progress as well, that will come with science and the different arenas that we can study and see. Nevertheless, we have to do our hard work. We saw here Dr. Santana, Dr. Miranda, Mr. Miranda, Dr. Guimarans as well. All of these individuals, they really dedicate their lives while on Earth to construct something, a better society, and they gave continuation while they went back into the spiritual realm. I promise you something very interesting. I would like to do this now because I think it will set the tone for all of us to prepare our questions and everything. But I would like you to pay attention to this final prayer. Obviously, we're still going to pray Later on, I will ask Kirsten to say the final prayer. But let me read this prayer by St. Francis of Assisi, and then we can finalize our discussion for tonight. Give me 1 second. Here it is. Take a deep breath because these are beautiful words. And this is just so you remember. This is actually the prayer that was said after Dr. Guimarans gave the first speech when he encountered with everybody and he was laying out the work that was about to happen. St. Francis of Assisi gets up and just says these beautiful words in the meeting. Enable us to understand your will and not our own, surrendering ourselves to your powerful hands and guidance. Help us fulfill our responsibilities, but not according to our own desires. Cast your gaze upon us so that we have the light of your tenderness, not the darkness of our ignorance. Bless our purpose to serve you, even though we have only been concerned about using your holy name to serve ourselves. Engage us in the sanctification of your design so that you may be in us, for we are not yet capable of being in you. Subdue our desires for power and pleasure, and help us acquire true renunciation and self denial. Help us understand our endeavors, sustaining us in our difficulties and aiding us when we are immersed in the physical body. Bestow upon us the gift of your peace so that we may distribute it wherever we may be, that all may behold it and know that we are your dedicated servants. And since death has restored us to the glorious life so that we may continue on the path of enlightenment, favor us with wisdom for the successful journey of ascension. Even if we often have to be immersed in the darkness of matter, though led by compass of your affable heart pointing the way. O Lord, intercede to the all-loving Father for us, your backward brothers and sisters, defectors from duty. This is the message again that we would like to leave you with you tonight. This beautiful prayer again is on chapter 13 of 14 that St. Francis of Assisi says at the end of their meeting, preparing the work for the reincarnation of our brothers and sisters from the beyond that is coming to help us. I'll go back, and this is when where we are. We can discuss, open up for some questions and some comments as well. Thank you.
Yes. Wonderful, Leo. Wow. Still, my mind's still kind of going, just listening to these chapters. So let's go ahead and share some of the comments / questions that were shared. There are a lot of just, feedback that people were sharing. There actually was someone from Japan named Claudia also tuning in. So thanks, Claudia, for tuning in from Japan and listening to this wonderful talk and, your comments as well. So a couple of the comments I'll ask. Yeah, hello from Japan. There she is, Claudia. Yep. There's always hope. I think that was from the text when the disciple was asking a question. John the Evangelist was asking the question when he found out what was, I guess, going on. So let's share. So there were some other comments as well. Cristiano Pedro just sharing, we need to seek peace of mind by doing charity, forgiving, and respecting one another. And I know our technical staff is going to be, there you go. Trying to search for what exactly I'm looking at. Thank you. Also, Paula Schmidt was chiming in saying, time spent in worry, pride, judgment, etc. is also lost time. Let go and refocus on trust, humility, and tolerance. And Mr. Pedro also shares, His comments, it depicts how immature we still are in terms of understanding and meaning the divine justice. And some of these comments were directly being made as you were going over certain aspects of the chapter, Leo. So let's jump over to some of the questions that we found. So one question, actually, that I posed, because you were talking, there was that one text you were talking about, and it sounded like to me, basically, you were referring to global warming. So my question was, so global warming is a byproduct of the spiritual disturbances and low level of evolution, because they were referring to the tectonic plates. Once the humanity and becomes more evolved and our planet changes, the tectonic plates will normalize and we won't see these calamities and natural disasters anymore. So can we attribute this, understanding of global warming to, the lack of or the disturbances on the planet Earth?
I am quite sure, Kirsten, that the disturbance, the geologic disturbance, have a lot to do with how we vibrate. That in any situation, we can experience this in our level right now. Very small things. For example, if you go to someone's house. And you feel the joy in the house. Let's not even think about the negative issues, right, that we can find on someone's house. But you go to someone's house and everybody is so in tune, and the food is so tasteful, the coffee tastes great, and all those things. What am I trying to explain here? That environment leaves everything, meaning that the product of anything that comes from that environment will be tasteful, will be helpful, will be of a good nature, right? Even the food, as we mentioned, will taste better because people are vibrating well. So I think that this definitely have a good gives us a good explanation on how we impact the environment. Now, there is also certain things that the planet Earth has to go through, geologically speaking, that it's inevitable, right? It's going to happen. The volcanoes, the different things that we still see on Earth that causes a lot of damage, right? The tectonic plates that has to be adjusted because of the cooling of the center of the Earth, right? Now, what I do see as well, and again, it's very evident for us today, as I explained, and I'll say it again, maybe with better words, hopefully, that with technological advancements in our ideals working together, look what I'm saying again, our ideals are when we put our minds together and our hearts together to say, look, why are we going to leave our brothers and sisters living in an area there is a volcano that can erupt at any time? Let's go ahead and place them in an area that they're going to be able to live a more fulfilling life without the panic that the volcano can erupt at any time. The second thing is that with our technological advancement, we should be able to implement some kind of way to predict when that's going to happen. And if it happens, what can we do to change the environment? I'm giving you a very simple example. Once more, we are able to predict changes in the environment, the weather, every 3 minutes. Every 3 minutes now, we know when it's going to rain, when it's going to snow, how hot it's going to be. And what are we using this for? Most of the time, we open the Weather Channel to create excitement in our life. Oh my God, it's going to rain. We know here in the northeast part of the U.S. And many parts of the country and in the world as well, we tend to open up the Weather Channel to say how many inches of snow we're going to get, so we don't have to go to work. So we're using the tools that it's already there, but not in an effective way. When we take this advancement, this technological advancement, and we really apply to live a better life, we will see things changing. So it's a collective things. It's our environment, mental condition affecting the environment, as well as the environment affecting us. So this is what I believe it's going to change. It's going to be an integrative thing.
Okay. Oh, thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Leo. Let's go ahead on to our next question from Daniel Santos. He says, Leo, someone that is in the middle of suffering, how can they contemplate a better future?
Pray. um, and I think, Daniel, knowing them a little bit, and I'll go back to what you always like to remind us, right? Look at the positive behind the whole thing. What I try to do is to think, in a situation that I am going through, right? The difficult that I am going through. If I wasn't going through that moment, number one, I would be doing something else. Would this something else that I would be doing enlightening as well? Would this other activity or moment of my life bring me any type of teachings, or ennobling, if we can say that way, moment, as this one is that I'm going through right now, allowing me to go through? That to me is number one, to look at the positive side by saying, what can I learn from this? Number two.
Oh, Leo, I think we lost. Yeah, there you go.
Actually, give me one second. I have to. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. It happened again with microphone. Okay. So the second thing is to think, look, this is saving me from getting myself into other worse situations that I am right now, right? Because if I am actually worried about something, preoccupied by something, then I'm actually constructing something in better in my life. And always look for the people who is around you. Even those individuals who are creating a mess in your life, because bless them, because they're putting you in a situation that you can ascend from something that perhaps we did in the past, or as we have been talking a lot here in our talks, that not necessarily everything is a suffering from the past. It's perhaps a test that we have asked to go through, and this is going to be a moment of ascension for us. To me, those are some of the elements that we can present to one another to say, think positively. It's not going to be easy. We're not here to say that, the pain is going to go away. No, we go to the gym, we work a specific muscle, and guess what? The next day it's going to be sore. But you know that there will be some growth. There will be, your body will be stronger to do the things that perhaps in the past you couldn't do. It's a poor knowledge, and I hope that this helps a little bit. But we see in this book right here with the examples that life responds according to what we have done in the past. And in order for us to go to the next test, we have to sublimate or overcome the test that we're being presented.
Thank you, Leo. I actually had a follow-up question to something you brought in one of your slides as well, from the book, obviously, when you mentioned, or when you were sharing from the book about the 10,000 discarnate aliens. And I just wanted to clarify, aliens and I think you did kind of clarify this, there was aliens as people not from Brazil or not from, and I think Raquel also added in there that these, I'm going to mess up the word, Pleiadians, were indeed these extraterrestrials that they resembled humans.
Right.
So could you just clarify what your understanding of those 10,000 aliens, and is what they're sharing, is what Manuel P. Miranda, is what he's sharing, has that already occurred? Because when this book was published originally in Portuguese, it was a number of years ago.
Right.
I believe it was published in English in 2010, I want to say, give or take a year or two. But so has it already come to pass? Or is it going to come to pass? Or what is your takeaway from that?
So to clarify, the book was actually in Portuguese was 2010.
Okay, 2010.
So this has been happening, and this is something that Manuel P. Miranda, I can quote him on this, that this transition, or let's say this work has started back in the 70s. It didn't start now, as he was, let's say, bringing this message through Divaldo Franco. So it had they had caravans, or they had groups of these spirits reincarnating or starting this work back in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s as well. So it has been happening. what I can say based on my understanding of the teachings of the book is that it's happening more aggressively now, right? And yes, when we're talking about immigrants, that it's coming, it is these aliens from the Pleiades, from one of the planets of the Pleiades, right there, where they are coming to, let's say, enlighten us on what they have gone through, on what they have learned here on Earth. It's not an immigrant from this or that country, but the analogy of immigrants from one country or the other is the basis for everything, where we can see that these amazing spirits are coming from far away to help us and illuminate us. And the advancement is going to be both ways, intellectual and morally as well. As we learn from Spiritism, we evolve in these two arenas. Most of the time, we evolve a little bit more intellectually speaking, so much that we see the evolving the advancement, technological advancement that we have nowadays, where we still don't use it very well, but things will change with these new minds reincarnating on Earth. And as things change it, the physiological appearance or our physiology will change too.
That makes complete sense. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. We have a question from Alba Morales. She actually has two questions we'll go over. She says, wow, such exciting chapters. How humble, blessed, and honored I feel with the arrival of selfless spirits. I'm wondering if they are only entering the planet via in vitro fertilization.
Good question, Alba, but I can give you a certain explanation on that, because Monofilament and Miranda does not give me a very well, or does not give us a very well or a direct saying on that. I would because I asked this question to myself as I was reading this, as I was studying this as well. The in vitro fertilization and all the work it is being done is because they have no connection whatsoever with these parents. Think about this is the only explanation. Please, it's just Leo analyzing the situation. I'm glad that she made this question, because I was reluctant to talk about it. Now she's forcing me. Put it out there, Leo. So imagine how much a mother and a child has to connect before the reincarnation, all those things, with the father as well. The work is it's a lot of work. Now, thinking that these individuals, these spirits from another star, have no connection with Earth whatsoever, they're again aliens. The best way is to allow them to become to reincarnate through this insemination process that they will actually connect with. Now, the mental and the mental and the heart connection, since they don't have, that's perhaps the only way, right? So again, how can you the mothers and the fathers out there, how they can conceive a child that they have no connection whatsoever? Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to love. They're not going to express sentiments to this little one that's going to reincarnate, the little baby and everything. They will, obviously, because we have been doing this over and over and over for millenniums, right? So, but it's going to be different because the connection is not there. And now that I'm talking about this, no wonder the last chapter, and this gives me goosebumps. No wonder the last chapter, because I just realized this. Manuel Filomeno de Miranda mentions about the cases of the mothers, remember, that actually had issues with kids and all the connection, what they did in the past and everything. Those two cases that actually the mother has recently lost as well, the kids. So maybe he was preparing us to understand a little bit better what's happening here. But this is a good question, and that is the reason why I believe it is in vitro.
Okay. Wow. Definitely, it's amazing. Let's go on to a second question that Alba shares. She says, Mr. Miranda mentioned if the more evolved spirits volunteered to come, or was it a mission?
It's a volunteerism that it becomes a mission. Um, and there's a lot that goes into that, and that point I will not discuss. But for some reason, I do believe that these spirits, they have a connection far, far, far. Somehow they have a connection with us, by not directly but indirectly, in terms of our Master Jesus. I would like to leave at that, because all of this work is being done under the guidance of Jesus. Jesus would not allow this to happen if it wasn't happening, right? So he's the governor of the earth. So the connection is not directly that we have with these minds, but his sublime ascension, he's love towards us here on earth, that he has the merit to go to another governor of that planet that where they're coming from and saying, I need volunteers to help my people. So that's my connection. And again, I would like to leave it at that. But more than ever, if you think about our situation here on earth, are we forced to do anything? Yes, we do have fatalism. We have the laws that we have to comply with, the natural laws, but nothing is imposed on us. So these minds, since they're way more evolved than us, I would like to say that they volunteer to work and to serve in this manner, right? And obviously, it is a mission, becomes a mission, because nobody moves to another country to help others, and we don't call that a mission.
Just a comment that Yasko had shared. Thank you, Daniel, for putting that up on the screen. She says, back to the colony, I found interesting that even the higher spirits need to replenish their energy, somewhat burned down during rescuing missions. So no shame to rest, right? But he also warns of waste of energy in wrongful, egotistical endeavors. Great reminder, considering that a certain amount of vital energy is given to each of us for this incarnation, we need to wisely apply our energy and waste at minimum. So great comments, Yasko. Thanks so much. That's a great reminder as well. That's so very true. We also, from Regina, she was sharing again the book, The Art of Letting Go by Richard Rohr. Thank you so much for sharing that, Regina. And I believe there's some more comments that we're throwing up here just to acknowledge everyone's presence that was here today. Chris also made a comment. He says, the aliens comment makes me think of the show Ancient Aliens, when they theorized that aliens came to Earth centuries ago. Uh-huh. Yeah, so, universal truths are out there. So we know that this has, been in existence. It's been happening. So it's fascinating stuff. It really is. It really makes us rethink this idea that we have currently in our society, this impediment that we have in our society, not wanting to be political in any way, shape, or form, but this idea of illegal aliens and, border control and things of that nature. Again, not trying to be political at all, but it warrants us to give it a second thought about, who really are true inhabitants of a particular country. As spiritists, where do we really come from? We know that we are immortal. So that's also just throwing some ideas out there, because why not? So, and Paula Schmidt, she also shared, time spent in worry, pride, judgment is also lost time. Let go and refocus on trust, humility, and tolerance. Thank you, Paula, for sharing that.
That may be one of the answers for what Daniel asked as well. When you're going through time, don't spend the energy on something that is hurting. Spend the energy on the antidote, not necessarily remedies. Antidote that is going to, cut the problem, put the problem away.
It looks like Lee was having some technical difficulties in his internet over there, but that's okay. We also wanted to, as Leo regroups there, gets his internet together, we also wanted to share a comment by Yasko where she says, yes, I heard. Oh, there we go, Leo. You're back. Yay.
I'm back. Good.
Do you want to finish your thought?
No, what you just read, what Paula said, it answers what Daniel said as well. To refocus on the positive instead of spending energy on the things that is already hurting, right? So that was basically what I said.
Okay, yeah, great reflections. And just a final comment that I see that Paul Yasko left for us. She says, "Yes, I heard Jesus is also in charge of higher level planets as well as lower level planets, i.e., the Earth, of course. So it's like having good connections, you know."
Yep, it is.
Having a friend in high places, it's helpful. So,
And Kirsten, to finalize real quick, since this is the last comment, I'll go, just want to like to share real quick what are we going to discuss next time we meet. Um, it's more than ever, I see through these teachings that Jesus is way more than what the Jesus that we have learned throughout this time, right? That we see that the hard work that has been placed on planet Earth, not only by him, but him giving the ability for other individuals to work, ourselves to work, because when we are helping ourselves, then we're helping others. When we're helping others, we're helping ourselves. I think this is the collective work is an amazing teaching that we can all connect, and we can share this here. And I hope that you pick up the book, read it, go after. We will be discussing other chapters soon in the month of August. We're going to be discussing enlightening experiences. And then reincarnation programming as well. I lost, let me see here where I am here. Caramba. Let me see here. Can you guys still see me? Okay, I'm sorry.
yes.
All right, so yeah, so there's much more to learn, much more to enlighten ourselves with. Please read the book. If you don't understand something, reach out to me, reach out to us. I would love to discuss this. Hopefully one day we'll make this a study group at the SSB, so we can enlighten ourselves a little bit more. So thank you for listening to me and the time that we had together. I'll pass it back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Leo. And again, I just wanted to echo what you said and to encourage others to pick up this book, to read it, because it always, to use a modern terminology, if you will, or phrase that younger folks use, it really hits different when you take the time to open up a book and read it for yourself and spend some time reflecting. It's wonderful to watch a lecture about it, and I think it's important, but I think it's also part of our own personal responsibility to make that time to actually go and reflect and read it ourselves. So let's just say a short prayer and wish everyone well. So join me before we close out for this evening. If you wish, you may close your eyes, because this helps to produce this feeling of connection and disconnecting from what's physically around you and reconnecting with your higher self, higher spirituality, spirit guides. And let's just open up our hearts and humble an immense gratitude for this evening of reflection, knowing that this alone has served a great purpose. May all those that listen this evening, may they feel these blessings. May they feel this continued energy of healing, of reconnection with the deeper meaning of life. We pray for all those that are enduring and feeling these challenging, difficult moments of our planetary transition. But may we take solace in the reminder that there is always hope. We take this moment to also ask and to pray for, to vibrate for, and to send love to all of those names in our book of prayers for those who send in their prayer requests to the Spiritist Society of Baltimore, all those names that are in our hearts and our minds, we ask them, the good spirits, to go to their aid and to assist them as much as possible. We thank you, dear Lord, dear Spirit guides, and our Master Jesus, for allowing us to feel your presence and your love. And so be it. So, dear friends, we wish you a very wonderful and happy Saturday. May it be a blessed Saturday. May you feel peace. May you feel love. Thank you and have a great evening. Bye.